Do I think eventually marijuana will be legal in the United States, the entire United States? Yes, I do. Right now, I think between medical and recreational, there's 33 states total, I believe, right in that area that have legalized marijuana. But at this point, it is against the rules in the NFL. And you may hate that, and I think it'll change. The level has already been changed to
what's a positive test?
What's a positive test? And I do think it'll eventually change. Right now, it is a rule. You can disagree with it all you want, but it is a rule you have to follow. And as I've always said, if you don't want to follow the rules, you don't have to play. And that's exactly what David Irving is saying. He's saying, you know what? I think the rule's stupid. I'm not going to follow the rules, so I'm not going to play. That's fine, man.
It's his choice.
That is absolutely his prerogative, his choice. And as I said, you can complain about it all you want, but until that rule changes, and if you work for a company, everybody works for a company, you don't like all the rules, but guess what you have to do?
Right.
Until they change, you got to follow the rules. You can rant and rave all you want about how bad they are, and I do think they'll change eventually. He doesn't like the rules, and he said, I'm not playing anymore. So more power to him making that decision. So at least at this point, he says he's done with the NFL. We'll see down the road if that stays or not, especially if they lessen the rules and restrictions on marijuana, which kind of leads to...
By the way, he's not the only one. Eugene Monroe, former first-round pick offensive lineman, basically said, I can't do this anymore unless I'm allowed to use cannabis for pain relief because it's much better than the opioids that I get from the doctors in the NFL to keep me from playing.
And that's kind of where the NHL side of this, we started looking at, there was a huge story on that and what the NHL is doing and where they have gone with their, we go through all the different drug testing in the four major sports. And for hockey, while their testing, includes during the season, basically you're subjected to a test during training camp and once during the regular season. You can also be selected for random testing during the regular season and the playoffs. But the testing, there's differentiate the drugs. There's performance-enhancing drugs, and there's drugs of abuse, as they call it.
Correct.
Street drugs,
yes.
which is true in any sport. But in other sports, there is some testing for it in some of those other sports, save for, I believe it's baseball. I just want to be factually correct on this. Baseball, their marijuana policy is a bit different. The league does not test players for drugs of abuse. It only conducts testing on drugs such as marijuana if baseball or union officials have reasonable cause. In the NBA and the NFL, there is some testing in different variations for marijuana. But in the NHL, they don't. Basically what happens is not just marijuana, but other drugs of abuse as well. And there are some agents who have spoken in this article that said they feel there's a cocaine problem in the NHL, and that's being abused a bit much. But as far as marijuana or how it works with drugs of abuse in the NHL, if you test, they now test, will see it in a test, but you don't get in trouble for it. They'll call you and they'll say, listen, your THC level is high, or we found this, a drug of abuse in your system, and they'll offer you help, but you don't have to take it. Like in some sports, it's mandatory you have to get the help, the seek counseling or whatever. Here, they just say, listen, we found this. We have a program for you if you'd like to take advantage of it, but you don't have to. And if you don't get in any trouble for it.
Right.
So they want to see if is that going to change for drugs other than marijuana or not. That's going to be a different story for a different day. They're also doing a study of 1,000 former players in Toronto with cannabis and a study of them for a year of doing that and not using opioids and seeing if there is a difference. Because that's the big battle right now. Really, it's the CBD oil, not taking the THC out of it, the CBD oil, and what a lot of athletes have been talking about is, wouldn't it be better if we could use this for pain instead of opioids? And I completely agree. Now,
100%.
As long as the testing shows that, I would completely agree. Because how many players have we talked about getting addicted to opioids? Man, I took hundreds of opioid pills while I was playing because it was deal with pain. If you don't want to deal with the pain, take these pills. The pain goes away and you go play in a game. And that's all I cared about was playing in the game. Now, I'm fortunate because even until I started getting my stem cells, I would get them at Premier Stem Cell in Colorado and Arizona, which has been fantastic for me. I had been doing opioids since pain pills since I retired, and I also did them while I was playing. And I thank God I never got hooked on them.
Right.
I never had that issue with them, but I took them, and I took them a lot to deal with pain. But I know a lot of guys who have gotten hooked on that stuff, and you're not getting hooked on CBD oil.
No.
So if that can work, I mean, you would be foolish not to look at something like that.
So with that in mind, what do you think it will take? Because one thing we need to explain about the NFL policy, they test you one time in the offseason.
Yes.
And if you pass that test
For street drugs.
for street drugs,
Right.
you're never tested again for the rest of the year.
Right.
So
That's exactly right.
If you pass, so I mean, while I understand what David Irving is saying, there is a way around this. Just make sure you understand when that window in the offseason is when you're going to be tested.
Because once you get popped, now you're going to be tested
You're in
more.
the program. You can be tested
Exactly
all the time you
right.
want. So it's really about It's really about, like anything else in the NFL, it's manipulating a test, right? Whether it's the combine results, how you want to manufacture your pro day. It's really about manipulating this one test. And if you can manipulate that one test, you don't have to worry about it anymore. All that being said, there are significant studies out there that show this use of this kind of drug or this kind of plant, it's something that grows in the ground naturally, is much better for you than the opioids that go into your system all the time. What will it take?
I don't know.
What will it take for the NFL
Trey,
to look at this?
And really in all sports too. I mean, maybe are some sports using it, others not? That I don't know.
Yeah.
But for my sport of football, I don't be last to the party on this if others are doing it.
Correct.
If there are tests out there, and you want to make sure, obviously, with studies and tests. But man, if that's helping with pain as opposed to popping a Vicodin, are you kidding me? An Oxycontin? Are you kidding? All stuff I've had. I mean, come on.
And there's also results that show the CBD oil also helps with CTE. Helps deal with that sort of stuff as well. So there's a lot to get into there. We just need an open and honest discussion.